Hi, and welcome to this special edition of Newswire L.A. I'm your host, Thammasaengsri. Today we're coming to you from the African-American Firefighter Museum here on 14th and Central Avenue in Los Angeles. It's a very special day at this museum because an icon is about to retire from this place. His name is Arnett Hartsfield. And Mr. Hartsfield has been here for the last 15 years, the entire existence of this particular museum. And we're here today to see a celebration of his time at this museum. So we are going to be here and we're going to show you all the highlights of that celebration. So sit back and we'll be back right after this. Covering the retirement of Arnett Hartsfield was not actually Newswire L.A.'s reason for coming to the African-American Firefighter Museum. However, Arnett's an icon, not only in the world of firefighting, but he's an icon of American history in general. What originally brought us to the museum was the fact that this is its 15th year anniversary celebration. This museum opened in what used to be Los Angeles City Fire Station number 30 in October 1997, and 15 years later, it has much to celebrate. We were looking forward to showing you the apparatus bay where the engines and trucks once parked. There is the upstairs dormitory area where once segregated firefighters slept. Today, it's one of the main exhibition areas for the museum's artifacts. Here's one of its historic poles, which men like Arnett Hartsfield used to get from up here to the apparatus floor below. Then there was Arnett Hartsfield, who, by far, was the most important part of this museum as its historian, curator, and griot of the history. It was a history he lived through, and as one of the leaders of the Stentorian movement to integrate LA's fire stations, he was the only man qualified to tell the story. We even sat down with museum president Brent Burton and conducted a 45-minute interview session on everything about this great museum. Neither of us was prepared for what was to come just a couple of weeks after this session. An email was sent out by Arnett's wife, Jean, that simply stated that Arnett would be retiring from the museum. He would be hanging up his helmet, turnouts, and boots for a quieter life out of the spotlight. None of us really knew why or when this would happen, but we knew our plans had to change. For Newswire L.A., that meant shifting from a story on the 15-year anniversary of the museum to joining in on a celebration of a life well lived, which is why we're here today. To understand the gravity of Arnett's presence in this museum, one has to understand what the museum stands for. I want to take some extracts from the session we did with Brent Burton. Listen carefully to the last cut as he talks about Mr. Hartsfield in particular.
Actually, Stentorians was pretty much founded here in the museum when it was a fire station back in the 50s by the African-American firefighters of the LA City Fire Department to combat the racial segregation policies of the department at that time. So between this station and Station 14, they organized themselves, and the Stentorians were really much born out of this building. This museum tells a story of the people. It's not so much a firefighting museum, it is a museum of a history of African-American people, of the African-American firefighters that struggled during the 1950s to combat the racial segregation policies of the fire service at that time. And so we cherish the memory of those old Stentorians that integrated the fire department in the 1950s. We also share the stories of African-American firefighters throughout the rest of the country. And if you're fortunate, most likely you'll meet a 93-year-old humble gentleman that was a World War II hero, an attorney, a civil service commissioner, a professor of African-American studies at Cal State Long Beach, and a firefighter for 20 years for the city of Los Angeles, who led the integration of the fire department from the firefighter standpoint, Mr. Hartsfield, who's actually lived through history. You'll be just mesmerized listening to his stories. He has a captive audience every time he speaks. And so that's the first thing. You may not even leave the first floor after talking to him.
We did head back down the stairs a few weeks later to what would become my final interview with Arnett Hartsfield at the museum. I had interviewed Arnett many times before, but this particular interview was personal for me. Mr. Hartsfield, you have just announced that after 15 years, you are no longer going to be here at the African-American Firefighter Museum, and you're its greatest living artifact.
I'm trying to leave because now I'm a burden to everybody. They gotta send transportation for me. And I don't know what I'd do myself without this to come to, but I can't drive anymore. So I finally decided I should hold out till my 94th birthday, which is coming up this month.
With all due respect, Mr. Hartsfield could not have been more wrong. The people who volunteered to go out of their way to make sure he made it to and from the museum did so because they got the joy of having him to themselves from the door of his house to the doors of the museum and back. Oscar Casillas, one of those who tasked himself with that duty, described their drives as one of the greatest honors beyond belief, and it's one that he'll miss greatly. What you see today is an intimate turnout of people who've come to celebrate the rookie. In the crowd are firefighters, politicians, friends, relatives, and everyone who felt they needed to be here today to say thank you to Arnett Hartsfield. Today's format will find Newswire L.A. bringing you the highlights of this celebration, along with extracts from my final interview with Arnett Hartsfield. So let's sit back and get this party started. Today's host is Museum President, Stentorian, and Los Angeles County Fire Captain, Brent Burton.
My name is Brent Burton. I'm the president of the African-American Firefighter Museum. And on behalf of the Museum Board of Directors, I want to welcome you all here to our very auspicious occasion. Now, normally this is a time where someone says we're gathered here today. And they can say that for a wedding, or they can say that for the other thing. And this isn't the other thing. This is just a celebration of achievement and our way to say thank you to a gentleman that has worked very tirelessly on behalf of this African-American Firefighter Museum, where we're all here today. And we're glad that you're here to share with us on this occasion. So without further ado, we're going to kind of run through a brief little program. This is very informal because that's the way our honoree, Mr. Arnett Hartsfield, would like it. So let's just give him a round of applause for being here. We have a few dignitaries here in the house. We'll acknowledge them in a little bit, and we have a few presentations we're going to make. But right now, I'm going to ask our museum vice president, Assistant Chief Kwame Cooper, to come and say a few words on behalf of the African-American Firefighter Museum.
And it was the most significant time when a poem was recited entitled Black Gold. And as these old stentorians came in and everybody stood at attention and honored them, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And we see that as significant because all that we have, we owe for the struggle of which these gentlemen were able to persevere to see what the outcome would be, which is us standing here today. And so, in spite of 52 years of segregation, we have a lot to show.
My comments to Mr. Hartsfield, gosh, I don't even know where to start. First of all, they start by saying thank you. If it wasn't for all that you've done, not just for African Americans, but for the entire LA City Fire Department, there is absolutely no way we would be able to take advantage of diversity with respect to race, gender, and religious convictions. Personally, you've made a tremendous impact on me by giving me the courage to look into the future, by teaching me a different way to fight, Mr. Hartsfield. Because I got to tell you, I know I would have failed the integration experiment where the old Stentorians committed not to fight back physically. I know I would have failed that experiment. So God brought me into this world at a time and place where, in a way, I've been able to contribute through all that you and the old Stentorians have done has helped make our fire department better. And as you always say, it does take a village to raise a child, and certainly it's all of the Stentorians that have made all of our successes possible. I can't thank you enough. We call you our griot because that's truly who you are and the African traditions of our people. And it's my commitment to continue those traditions, to ensure that all of what we do now and in the future gets told, and that we create new possibilities in the future that will only make this fire department, this community, that much better. So I say thank you, I love you, and thank you so much for your 15 years of endless volunteering here at the African-American Firefighter Museum.
And so, Arnett, and to the old Stentorians, I can't tell you how hard I worked to get to this point in my career, but I truly want to stand here and thank you for your sacrifices and your commitment for enabling me to have an opportunity to compete. Once again, I just want to thank you for your many years of contributions to the fire service, for your mentoring, and ensuring young men like myself have had the opportunity to enter into the fire service and to promote to the level of fire chief. I truly want to thank you for your efforts and your sacrifices as it relates to African Americans in the fire service.
That whole camaraderie and that fellowship that was so apparent in what they did. These men were role models to me, and the names were, you know, to my brother and I, were like, wow, these I want to be like those guys when I get older. And little did I know that the efforts of all of you contributed so much to me being where I'm at today, to Los Angeles, to being the third African-American fire chief for the city of Los Angeles, to serving in a region now with Darrell Osby and 3 other African-American fire chiefs right here in the Los Angeles County area. Hello, I'm Brian Cummings, the chief of the Los Angeles Fire Department. Arnett, congratulations. Known you for a very long time, since I was a little boy, and what you've contributed to my department and to my family is amazing. Many, many more years of telling those great stories and being productive. You have had a full life, and they say that when you have that flashback of your life, when something calamitous is going to happen, make sure that you've done some things to make it exciting. And sir, you've had a very full life. Thank you very much, Arnett.
So I could talk about my relationship over the last 50 years with the Hartsfield family. But it's just my honor today to say thank you for all that you've done in your 90 plus years. But it's not sure that everyone knows all that you've done. And we would be remiss if we don't take every opportunity, whether it was with the fire department or the school board or in the neighborhoods in South LA or at Long Beach or at the personnel department. Every place that Mr. Hartsfield has gone, he's left it better than he found it. The Bible has a passage that talks about the gentlemen who were given talents. And the object of the exercise in the Bible was that you were to make more talents than you were given. And if you did that, then that means that you left it better than you found it. That will certainly be what we say about Mr. Hartsfield, because that is what he's done in every place that he's been.
Hi, Arnett. I think you know me, Doug Berry, retired fire chief, Los Angeles City Fire Department. Just want to congratulate you and thank you for all that you've done for all the black firefighters on Los Angeles City and the other departments as well. As you know, you and I have had a long relationship, particularly when I made fire chief. You were there supportive of me, encouraging me, assisting me, and my time that I spent with you volunteering at the museum has been invaluable. The stories you've told me, the inspiration you've given me, I just want to thank you and wish you the best and for many years to come. Thank you.
See, when Captain Powell told me I was going to be integrated, I had a kind of a big head. I said, they'll be so glad to have me. I got 2 degrees from USC. I'm an attorney. I got over there, Captain said, Hartsfield, I'm asking you not to come in the kitchen when the white firemen are eating. And the other men wouldn't even speak to me. Then I noticed a young rookie came on. And I began to notice that if we were off by ourselves, no one near us, he'd speak to me. One of his first conversations was, you folks just ain't ready. Now, I don't want to hurt his feelings too bad, because at least he's speaking to me. So I said, well, Bill, I'm just asking you to accept the ones that are ready. Then he said, Hartsfield, we don't want this job to become like the post office, a colored man's job. I said, well, what are you doing here? See, this is before Obama. I said, you could have been president. I'm here because this is the very best they'll let me do. Then he said, Hartsfield, why wouldn't you be happy over on Central Avenue with your own kind? I don't want to hurt him. I said, Bill, why don't you back to Oklahoma with your own kind? I heard you tell the other man that your mother brought you and your brother to California to better your condition. We had as many runs in a day on Avenue as you have in a month. This is like early retirement. I'm better in my condition. So finally, he shifted reels on me. Hartsfield, you got all the advantages. You've got the NAACP, you've got the Urban League, you've got the Supreme Court. I said, hold it, Bill. Tomorrow morning, when we get off duty, come with me down to headquarters. Tell them you've just discovered some black blood in your family tree, and you won't even have to prove it, and you'll have all my advantages. You know, the next morning I couldn't find that dude.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. And I really wanted to be here today. I know Arnett says he's slowing down, and I think this time I'm going to believe him. But, you know, when I think back about when I was a staff person and the building hadn't been renovated yet, and it was filled with pigeons and other critters and rain damage, and I was the chief of staff for the previous councilwoman, Mrs. Walters. You know, I never thought that we would get to the day where it would look as beautiful as it does and be completely restored. And there it is. And Arnett was persistent and relentless and focused to make sure that we had a home to come and spend time with our history and the history of the city. And what makes this place so special, in my opinion, is the fact that he had his private collection there and would take time, if you were interested, and explain every single photograph up there, every single incident, every occurrence.